When one of the retired government officials had the temerity to protest at his eviction, Ansari answered that it was he who made the laws and he had the right to break them. When the old man continued to protest, the MP waved his hand and ordered the guards to beat him up. At the next stop, Ansari was received by a crowd of supporters, including other MP and 10 of his armed retainers. They dragged the retired officials out of the carriage and continued the work begun by Ansari's guards. As the train pulled out, the old man was left bleeding on the platform. The second story was a tale of the life of a Bihar civil servant. In October 1994, a young graduate named G. Krishnaya received his posting as a district magistrate of Gopalganj, a remote and anarchic district of the northern Bihar. It was not exactly a dream assignment. Gopalganj was renowned as one of the most lawless areas in India, and only 2 weeks before, Krishnaya's predecessor as a district magistrate had been killed by a bomb hidden in the briefcase in his office. Nevertheless, Krishnaya was energetic and idealistic, and he set about his new job was with enthusiasm, giving a brief introduction, and he gave a brief interview to Doordarshan, the Indian state television network, in which he announced a series of measures intended to turn the area around, to control crime, generate employment, and uplift the untouchables of Gopalganj. Watching the clip now, with the young official speaking so blithely, which means carefree, about his intention of rooting out violence, the manner of his end seems all the more horrifying. 2 months later, Krishnaya was driving along the road at dusk when he ran into the funeral procession of a local mafia don who had been killed in a shootout the day before. The procession was being led by the local MP, Anand Mohan Singh, who, prior to entering politics, had spent most of the previous 2 decades as an outlaw with the price on his head. In that time, the police has registered nearly 70 charges against him, ranging from murder and criminal conspiracy to kidnapping and possession of unlicensed arms. According to the statements collected by the police, Singh exhorted all his followers to lynch the upstart official, whereupon the mourners surrounded Krishnaya's car and one of the Singh's henchmen fired 3 shots at him. Krishnaya was badly wounded but still alive. So, encouraged by Singh, the mourners pulled him up from his car and slowly stoned him to death. That a sitting MP could be arrested for ordering a crowd to lynch and murder a civil servant was bad enough. But what happened next reveals quite how bad things have become in Indian politics in recent years. Anand Mohan Singh was arrested, but from his prison cell he contested and retained his seat in the 1996 general election. Later, securing bail to attend parliament, he recently distinguished himself during a parliamentary debate by snarling, "Say that again and I'll come and break your teeth," at an opponent on the other side of Lok Sabha debating chamber. Justice in India being what it is, few believe that the police now have much chance of bringing a successful prosecution. Over the years, my friends explained, violence had come to totally dominate almost every aspect of life in Bihar. It was said that in Patna, no one bothered buying second-hand cars anymore. Instead, armed gangs stopped vehicles in broad daylight, then forced the drivers to get out and sign pre-prepared sale deals. As the Bihari government was too poor to pay the contractors who carried out public works, The contractors had been compelled to start kidnapping the government's engineers and bureaucrats in order to get the bills paid. The other contractors, desperate for business, had taken to reckoning violence on each other. One report I had seen described a shootout in Muzaffarpur. I'm sorry. Other contractors, desperate for the business, had taken to a reckoning violence on each other. One report I had seen described a shootout in Muzaffarpur between the Gundas of competing engineering companies after tenders had been put out to build a minor bridge in an obscure village. In some upper caste areas, the burning of untouchables had become so common that it was almost an organized sport. Various lower caste self-defense forces had formed in reaction and were said to be busily preparing for war in villages. They had rechristened with names like Lenni Nagar and Stalinpur. There were now estimated to be 10 major private armies at work in different parts of Bihar. In some areas, the violence had spun completely out of control and was approaching a situation of war. Bad things went on in Bihar. My friends told me that was just the way it was. But the singularly horrific nature of Barra massacre. Barra, again, is a place which is in Bihar. When I found myself in Patna, I decided to hire a car and go to and visit the village. I decided to take the road leading to Barra from Patna was much worse. I had been traveling on 5 years of living in India. Although it was one of the principal highways of Bihar, potholes the size of bomb craters pitted its surface. Either side, the rustling skeletons of dead struck lined the route like a succession of mementi mori. Mementi mori is again a Latin term which means remember you must die. Okay. As we drove, I had the feeling that I was leaving the 20th century far behind. First, the electricity pylons came to halt, then the cars and trucks disappeared from the road, even the rustling skeletons vanished. Wow. In the cities, wells began to replace such modern luxuries as hand pumps. We passed the old pony trap and 4 men carrying a palanquin. The men flagged us down and warned us about the highwaymen. They told us to be off the roads by dark. Eventually turning right along the dirt track, we came to Barra. It was a small ancient village raised above the surrounding fields on an old earthen tail. Its population was entirely Bhumihar, Brahmins who had converted to Buddhism at the time of Emperor Ashoka around 300 BC, who had been then denied readmittance to the priestly caste when Indian Buddhism was wiped out by an aggressive Hindu revival 1,000 years later. Bhumihars were still high caste, but they had never quite regained the top place in the caste pyramid. They had lost 250 years before the Romans first arrived in Britain. I was taken down Barra by Ashok Singh, one of the 2 men who survived the massacre. He walked me over to an embankment where a small white monument had been erected to the memory of 42 murdered villagers. A hot wind blew in from the fields. Dust devils swirled in the dried out paddy. I asked, "How did you escape?" "I didn't," he said. And pulling off a scarf, he showed me the lurid gash left by the sickle which he had sliced off the back of his neck. They cut me and left me for the dead. Ashok began to describe in detail what had happened. He said that, as normal, he had gone to bed before eating his supper at 8:30. The week before, there had been an atrocity when the Swarna Liberation Front, the upper caste, Bhumihar militia, had gang raped and killed 10 Harijan women in the next district. But Bara was far from there, and no one was escaping trouble. Ashok, his brothers, father and uncle were all asleep on their charpoys when they were woken by the sound of explosion at 10:30. They were frightened and went to the women's part of the house to alert their wives and mothers. The explosions and the sound of gunfire came closer. Then a burning splint was thrown onto the thatch of their roof. At the same time, there was a shout from outside that everyone should come out and give themselves up, or else burn to death. As soon as the roof caught fire, my uncle and I began trying to put out blaze. We didn't take any notice of what was being shouted, so eventually these low people had to break down the doors and drag us out. There were hundreds of them, armed with guns, spears, bows, lathi and sickle. They left the women by our house, but they tied the men up with the length of cloth. Did they say where they were from, what militia they were a part of? No, but they were local men. We could tell by their accents. At first, they left us lying where we were as they destroyed all the village houses with fire and dynamite. Then they said, "There's a meeting," and they dragged us men to the edge of the village. There they made us sit in the middle of a circle. Then, one by one, they started killing us. Right there where we were sitting, a great crowd was watching, but only 2 people were doing the killing. So it took a long time. I was very frightened. My mind went blank. They killed all my brothers, they killed my father, and they killed my uncle and my cousins. Eventually my turn came. One of the men pushed me forward, and the other got his sickle and took 3 swipes. It made deep cuts on the back of my neck and head. I was senseless. Next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital in Gaya. I was 3 weeks before I could get out of bed. You were lucky. How can you say that? I lost 8 of my kin. Ashok's face crumpled and he looked down. After some time again, he met my eyes. I would like to take revenge, he said quietly, but I don't have the capacity.